All right, everyone, welcome to another deep dive with us.
Yeah.
Today, we're going all in on blackjack.
Ooh, exciting.
It's a casino classic.
Yeah.
And, you might think of like smoky back rooms and dimly lit,
Yeah.
places. But
It's got a certain mystique.
it does. And there's a lot more strategy to it than meets the eye.
Way more than like roulette or the slots, for sure.
So that's what we're going to get into today.
Awesome.
And we'll talk about the history of it, too. Some really interesting stuff that we found.
Yeah, some cool historical tidbits.
Yeah, and, I think by the end of this deep dive, you'll be able to walk up to any blackjack table and feel confident.
You'll know what's up.
Yeah, so let's just start with the basics.
Yeah.
What is blackjack and how do you play?
All right, so blackjack.
Yeah.
The goal is to get closer to 21 than the dealer without going over.
Okay.
Which is called busting.
Right.
And I think that the simplicity of that objective is part of what's so appealing about it.
Right.
But unlike some other casino games, your decisions in blackjack actually matter.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Yeah, there's this thing called basic strategy, which we'll talk about later.
Okay.
And that can really affect your odds of winning.
Okay, cool. All right, so let's break it down even further.
Okay.
So how are the cards valued?
So the number cards are worth their face value. His case cards are all 10s.
Gotcha.
And the ace is flexible.
Okay.
It can be 1 or 11.
So it's like a wild card?
Kind of, yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. Depends what works best for your hand.
Oh, so you get to choose.
Exactly.
Okay, cool. All right. So I'm at the table.
Yeah.
Ready to play what happens.
You place your bet.
Okay.
And then the dealer deals 2 cards face up to each player.
Okay.
And 2 cards to themselves, 1 face up and 1 face down.
So you can see everyone else's cards and one of the dealer's cards.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
You got some information to work with right from the start.
All right, then what?
Okay, so this is where the strategy comes in. Based on what you see, you decide your next move.
Okay.
You can hit to get another card to try and get closer to 21, or you can stand if you're happy with your current hand.
Okay.
And then there's other options too, like double down, where you double your bet and you just get 1 more card.
Okay.
Or split. If you have 2 cards of the same value, you can create 2 separate hands.
Oh, wow. So there's a lot of options.
There are, yeah.
So what about the dealer?
Yeah.
They're just watching us make all these choices.
They are until all the players have made their moves. And then they reveal their hidden card.
Okay.
And they have to follow certain rules.
Okay.
They have to hit until they reach 17 or more.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so they're a little more constrained than we are as players.
Exactly.
Interesting. And that's part of the strategy, I'm guessing?
Yes, definitely.
You have more control.
Yeah, I always wondered this. Where did the name blackjack even come from?
Okay. So,
It sounds kind of mysterious.
yeah, it actually has its roots in 17th century France. Oh, wow.
They had this game called 21, which is French for 21.
Okay.
And then the name blackjack, it was a marketing ploy by early American casinos.
Oh.
They offered this bonus payout
Oh.
if you got 21 with the ace of spades
Uh-huh.
and a blackjack. So either the jack of clubs or spades.
I see.
Yes, that's where the name comes from.
So the bonus didn't stick around, but the name did.
Exactly.
Sure.
So interesting, a little bit of casino history there.
Yeah. So let's talk about winning then. How do you win? Or
Right.
how do you actually improve your chances of winning?
Yeah, so
Is it all luck or is there skill involved?
this is what makes blackjack so interesting.
Okay.
There's actually a lot of strategy involved.
Okay.
And while luck does play a role, strategy can really affect your odds.
Interesting.
Yeah, so the most fundamental strategy is called basic strategy.
Basic strategy.
Yeah.
Okay, tell me more.
So it's basically a mathematically proven approach
Okay.
to every hand,
Okay.
and it's based on your cards and the dealer's up card.
Okay.
And so you can find it presented in a chart
Okay.
that tells you the statistically best move for every possible combination.
So if I memorize this chart, I'm guaranteed to win.
Not exactly. It minimizes the casino's advantage,
Okay.
which is called the house edge. It
Okay.
gives you the best possible odds over time.
Okay.
Yeah, it's all about playing the probabilities.
That makes sense. So even if you're not like some card counting savant,
Right.
just understanding this basic strategy can make a big difference.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Even just grasping the logic behind it can really improve your choices at the table.
Cool. So we'll definitely dive deeper into that.
Yeah.
But before we do, I want to talk about the other side of the coin, the risk.
Okay.
Because it's all fun and games
Right.
until you lose all your money.
Right. That's a crucial point.
So what are some of the risks involved with playing blackjack?
Well, like any form of gambling,
Yeah.
blackjack does carry inherent risks. even if you play flawlessly, you can still lose money just because of chance.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we call these short-term fluctuations variance.
Variance.
Right.
So even with the best strategy, you can have winning streaks and losing streaks.
Exactly. And that's why bankroll management is so important.
Okay.
You need to set limits,
Yeah.
decide how much you're willing to lose
Okay.
before you even start playing.
Okay.
And you also need to avoid chasing losses.
Right. Yeah.
That's a slippery slope.
Right. Yeah.
Remember, it's entertainment, not a get-rich-quick scheme.
Right. It's easy to get caught up in the moment
It is.
and just start making rash decisions.
Yeah, emotions can really affect your judgment.
Yeah, I'm starting to see how psychology plays into gambling almost as much as like
Yeah, absolutely.
strategies do.
Yeah, your mindset can really affect your choices at the table.
This is really interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
So we've covered the basic rules,
Mm-hmm.
the flow of the game,
Right.
the concept of basic strategy, and the risks.
Yeah.
But there's a couple other things I want to get into.
Okay.
Before we go too deep on strategy,
Yeah.
what about these hot and cold tables you always hear about?
Ah, yes. The myth of the hot streak.
Is there any truth to that?
No, not
Okay.
really.
Okay.
It's a common misconception, but in reality, each hand in blackjack is independent.
Okay.
Previous outcomes don't influence the next hand.
Okay.
Just because a table has been winning for a while doesn't mean it's going to continue.
So it's like flipping a coin.
Exactly.
50-50 chance every time.
Yeah, past results don't predict future outcomes.
Okay, that's a good reminder.
Yeah.
And what about card counting?
Okay, so card counting is a real strategy.
Yeah.
But it's not as simple or as foolproof as the movies make it seem.
Okay.
The basic idea is to keep track of the ratio of high cards to low cards
Okay.
that have been dealt.
Oh, yeah.
So the idea is if there's more high cards left in the deck,
Right.
that's advantageous to the player.
Because they're more likely to get those tens and aces and stuff?
Exactly. Yeah, so the way it works is card counters assign point values to different card groups.
Okay.
And as the cards are dealt, they keep a running count.
Oh, wow.
And then they adjust their bets and their playing strategy based on that count.
So it's like a whole mental math game
It is, yeah.
going on in addition to the actual game.
Yeah, it requires a lot of focus and a good memory.
So is it actually effective?
It can give players a slight edge,
Okay.
but it's not a guaranteed path to riches.
Okay.
Casinos have also gotten wise to this,
Okay.
and they've implemented measures to make it less effective,
Oh, like what?
like using multiple decks
Okay.
and shuffling more frequently.
So it's not like this magical system that just
Right.
guarantees you're going to win.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And also, it's worth noting that casinos don't really like card counters.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they can ask players that they suspect of card counting to leave.
Oh, wow.
Even though it's not technically illegal,
Interesting.
it's kind of a high-stakes gamble in itself.
Yeah.
So yeah, for most players, focusing on basic strategy and choosing the right tables is a more practical approach.
Gotcha. This has been really eye-opening.
Yeah.
So we've covered basic rules, historical tidbits,
Yeah.
strategic aspects. We've busted some myths.
For sure.
I'm excited to delve deeper into this basic strategy.
Yeah, me too. All right. Welcome back to our Blackjack Deep Dive.
All right, so last time we laid the groundwork, talked about the basics, the risks, and we sort of hinted at this idea of basic strategy.
Yeah.
So let's unravel that mystery.
Okay, let's do it.
How does it actually work?
So basic strategy is all about making the statistically optimal decision for every hand.
Okay.
Based on your cards and the dealer's visible cards.
Okay.
So it's a system that's been refined over years of,
Okay.
crunching the numbers, and it really helps to minimize the casino's advantage.
Okay, so there's math involved, but like, how does that actually translate to choices at the table?
Right. So think of it as a roadmap.
Okay.
For every possible combination of your hand and the dealer's up card, there's a statistically best move,
Okay.
whether it's hit, stand double down, or split.
Gotcha.
And so you can actually find these strategies laid out in charts.
Oh, so I can just like have a chart with me, look up my situation,
Exactly.
and make my move.
Yeah, it's simpler than you might think,
Okay.
but the real power comes from understanding the logic behind it.
Okay.
So for example, if the dealer is showing a weak card, like a 5 or a 6,
Okay.
they're more likely to bust when they draw more cards.
So in that case, I might stand even with a lower hand total, hoping that they go over.
Exactly, you're playing the probabilities.
Okay.
On the other hand, if the dealer has a strong up card, like a 10 or an ace, you might be more aggressive and hit to try to beat them.
So it's like a chess game almost,
It is very much like a chess game, yeah.
anticipating their moves
Yeah, you got to think a few steps ahead.
based on the limited information you have.
Exactly, and basic strategy helps you do that. It helps you maximize your chances in the long run.
This is so cool. So it's not just about memorizing a chart. It's about understanding the why behind each move.
Exactly. Yeah, that's what makes it so engaging.
Okay.
You're not just playing cards, you're playing probabilities and calculated risks.
So even if someone doesn't have the whole chart memorized, just knowing these core principles can make them a smarter player.
Absolutely. Even just grasping that basic logic can make a huge difference.
Okay, cool. This has been really insightful. I feel like you've demystified basic strategy
Awesome.
and shown how it can really empower players
I hope so.
to
Yeah.
make better decisions.
Yeah, and remember, this is just the tip of the iceberg.
Okay.
As you become more comfortable with the fundamentals, you can explore even more advanced techniques.
Okay.
Like we talked about card counting before.
Right, card counting.
Yeah, so.
But before we go down that rabbit hole,
Okay.
I do want to circle back to the role of luck.
Okay, sure.
Because even with perfect strategy, isn't this all still a gamble?
You're absolutely right. No strategy can eliminate chance entirely.
Right.
There will always be winning and losing streaks, even for the most skilled players.
So how do you reconcile that then, the strategic element and the randomness?
Right, that's the key. You have to approach it with a balanced perspective.
Okay.
You're not trying to control the uncontrollable.
Okay.
Instead, you're making informed decisions to shift the odds slightly in your favor.
Okay.
You're tilting the scales, not guaranteeing a specific outcome.
That makes sense. So it's about maximizing your chances within a system that's ultimately governed by chance.
Exactly. Yeah, and that goes back to the point about responsible gambling.
Right.
No matter how skilled you become, there's always an element of risk. You know, you have to set limits, stick to your budget. Remember, it's entertainment, not a way to make a living.
Absolutely. All right, so let's talk about some of those more advanced techniques.
Okay. Yeah.
You mentioned card counting. You piques my interest.
All right. So card counting is a way of keeping track of the ratio of high cards to low cards that have already been dealt.
Okay.
And the idea is that if a deck has more high cards remaining, it's advantageous to the player.
Because you're more likely to get those tens and aces?
Exactly.
Okay.
So the way it works is card counters assign point values to different card groups.
Okay.
And as cards are dealt, they keep a running count in their head,
Oh, wow.
and they'll adjust their bets and their playing strategy based on that count.
So it's like a whole mental math game going on,
It is, yeah.
parallel to the card game.
Yeah, it takes a lot of focus.
Wow. So is it as effective as they make it seem in movies and stuff?
It can give players a slight edge,
Okay.
but it's not a guaranteed path to riches.
Okay.
And casinos have also gotten wise to this.
Okay.
They've implemented things to make it less effective, like using multiple decks
Right.
and shuffling more frequently.
So it's not like this magical system that guarantees wins.
Exactly.
Okay.
And it's also worth noting that casinos don't really welcome card counters.
Right. Yeah, you said they can kick you out,
Yeah, they can ask you to leave.
even though it's not illegal.
Right, even though it's not illegal.
Interesting.
It's a bit of a high-stakes gamble in itself.
Yeah, for sure. So for most players, mastering basic strategy
Right.
and understanding the odds is a better approach.
It's a more practical and enjoyable approach, I think.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So before we move on, are there any common mistakes that you see beginners make
Oh, yeah, definitely.
when they play blackjack?
Yeah, one common one is taking insurance when the dealer is showing an ace.
Insurance, what's that?
So insurance is a side bet.
Okay.
That pays out if the dealer has blackjack.
Oh, so it's like a safety net.
It is, but statistically, it's usually a bad bet.
Oh, really?
Yeah, the odds of the dealer having blackjack are actually pretty low.
Okay.
And taking insurance often leads to more losses in the long run.
So just write it out.
Yeah, trust the odds.
Okay, what else?
Another common mistake is playing too emotionally. You know, getting caught up in winning or losing streaks can lead to impulsive decisions like chasing losses or betting more than you can afford.
Right. That's the psychology of it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, staying level-headed and sticking to your plan is super important.
Okay. Any other tips for beginners?
Yeah, one final tip, don't be afraid to ask questions.
Oh, okay.
The casino environment can be intimidating for beginners,
Sure.
but dealers are usually happy to explain the rules
Okay.
or clarify anything you're confused about.
That's good to know. So for anyone listening who's new to blackjack, don't be shy. Ask for help.
Exactly.
Remember, it's all about having fun
Yeah,
and enjoying the challenge.
for sure.
Okay, cool. Are there any other advanced techniques besides card counting that we haven't talked about?
There are a few, but they're even more complex, and they really require a deep understanding of the game.
Okay, so maybe not for beginners, but something to look into down the road
Yeah, for sure.
if you really want to dive deep.
Exactly.
All right, so welcome back to our final part of our blackjack deep dive.
Yeah, it's been fun.
We've covered a lot of ground, from the basic rules to these more advanced strategies.
Yeah.
busted some myths, and even talked about responsible gambling and the psychology of it all.
It's important stuff.
Yeah. So before we wrap up, I want to touch on something you mentioned earlier, which is casino etiquette.
Oh, yeah.
You know, are there any unspoken rules or things that a newbie should know,
Yeah, for sure.
just to avoid sticking out like a sore thumb at the table?
Right. It's all about respect.
Okay.
Respect for the dealer, respect for your fellow players, and respect for the game itself.
Okay, so what are some specific things to keep in mind?
So first and foremost, know the rules of the game before you sit down.
Okay.
Fumbling around and asking basic questions can slow things down and kind of frustrate the other players.
Yeah, it's like showing up to a poker game and not knowing the hand rankings.
Exactly.
Right.
Another important one is to use clear hand signals to communicate your decisions to the dealer.
Okay,
So no yelling, "hit me," across the table.
gotcha. So use those hand signals.
Yes, tap the table for a hit, wave your hand horizontally for a stand.
Okay.
Just keeps things running smoothly.
Gotcha. Clear hand signals. Check what else?
Once you've placed your bets, avoid touching your chips.
Oh.
That helps prevent any confusion or disputes.
Makes sense. Keeps things transparent.
Exactly. And lastly, just be courteous to the dealer and your fellow players, win or lose.
Right.
Everyone's there to have fun and enjoy the experience.
Good sportsmanship goes a long way.
Absolutely.
Okay, so any final thoughts before we sign off?
Yes, I want to leave our listeners with this.
Okay.
Remember, blackjack is a game of skill and chance.
Right.
You can learn the strategies, understand the probabilities, but you can't control the cards.
Yeah, you can't control what you're dealt.
Right, and that's part of the excitement,
Right.
Embrace that duality. Enjoy the challenge, the mental stimulation, and the thrill of the unknown.
That's a great way to put it.
But always remember, play responsibly within your limits.
It's absolutely well said. Well, this has been an awesome deep dive into the world of blackjack.
Yeah, it has.
We've explored everything from basic rules to advanced strategies, busted some myths, and talked about the psychology of gambling,
Yeah, we covered a lot.
casino etiquette. Even I feel like I could walk up to a blackjack table now and
I hope so.
feel pretty good about it.
That was the goal.
Yeah. So for anyone listening who's ready to try their hand at blackjack,
Yeah.
remember what we've talked about today. Study those rules, practice basic strategy,
Yeah,
and approach the game with a responsible mindset.
absolutely. And who knows, maybe you'll even walk away a winner.
Maybe so. That's all for today's deep dive into the world of blackjack.
Thanks for joining us.
We hope you enjoyed it as much as we did.
Yeah, see you in the next one.
See you next time.